It was dark when we finally made camp, which was our first mistake, because at the parts of Goal we was at, the dark was a little bit alive, known to eat people caught out in it. Luckily, we got a fire up quickly enough to keep our bones covered in meat. There was 4 of us in all, each a grey coat, and each one as sore as a mystic's arsehole. Mission was another day's march away, you see, so we was only just getting our chance to actually rest after a week of backpacking along the countryside and killing everything that tried to eat, fuck or drink us. Stumpy being my fire team leader, a big bastard from Pagrakai, one of those ice-blasted Golian colonies. Big bastard even for a tyke, at least as tall as most back in tie close, and inches wider at both shoulders. His voice was deep, even for a bloke his size, and it was a weird thing too, on account of how he got the nickname Stumpy from a musket ball blowing off his knackers. He was still in charge, course. Man don't need a cock to make a good corporal, though it certainly helps keep motivation for living. "We'll take 12 hours rest," Stumpy announced, grunting as he laid his pack out and leaned against it beside the fire, and standard shifts to keep the light strong. That was met with a lot of agreement from the rest of us. A Wrathmen can march for ages, course. Not a man in our forces would fail to keep a brisk pace up for 20, even 30 or 40 hours straight if he was forced to. Problem was, we'd been doing almost as hard a march for about 3 times longer by now. It was good to rest after that, and it was good for a corporal to order it. Particularly good considering he was alone with the rest of us, and there was no way of proving anything that may or may not have happened if he hadn't. We drank at first, but the corporal said not too much Sajaro because we had a mission the day after. That made us bored, and a damn sight colder than we would have been with our skin all nice and numb, so we started chatting more to pass the time along. Chats with Wrathmen aren't what you're probably used to though. See, with normal blokes they might discuss the news or local rumours. We don't got much like that, at least not at our missions. With the rest of our corps back on a siege hundreds of miles away, we weren't connected to the usual gossip accounts. So, our chat turned the only other direction it could go. Everyone has stories, but not many are stories like Wrath stories. We fight more or less everything there is to fight on Goal, shipped around from one island to another, told what to kill and, killing it. So just about every greycoat has a couple of highlights, assuming he lived long enough to remember them. Lycos started first, much to our distaste. I should explain, shouldn't I? Lycos he's alright. None of us really mind him, but there's something about the bloke that just leaves him off. I can't really explain it, but we all feel it. He always had a hard time making friends, still does in fact. Didn't help that he was the youngest, something like 17 I think. Well, 17 isn't so young for a Wrathman at least. He's been shooting since he was 10 after all, and had been around the ways a few times in any case. Didn't surprise many of us that he started with a story from back in Wrath itself. It was where he'd seen most of his action. I just started fighting a few weeks ago, I think. Somewhere around 13, 14 as far as I can tell. I had a few L4s under my belt, maybe a Dakaran if a shot was as lucky as I think it might have been, but nothing too major. This is the first thing I saw that was really weird, in any case. It was this mystic, see? One of the Wrath mystics, which, if you've ever met one, you'll know is probably one of the most miserable sorts of bastards you're ever likely to meet. Imagine being, from the moment you're born, given every single thing you want, no questions asked, no limits imposed. Sex, Sajaro, money, anything. That's the life that a mystic of his power lived. Now, imagine somehow being thick enough to piss off one of the few people who could take it all away from you, ending up ankle deep in shit with the rest of the poor bastards in Wrath. Needless to say, not a lot of smart mystics end up in Wrath. Salter, who was probably on the dumber end too, never quite learnt how to keep his head down while bullets were flying, and his outfits. Pit his fucking outfits. I swear that man dressed like some lady's whore, all prim and technicolored, like he was begging to get shot in the head. What happened to him? Well, I got shot in the head. No surprise there, it's what happens when you keep it sticking out all the time. What is weird though is that Salty actually lived. Well, not that weird. I reckon it happens with about 1 in every 20 headshots I've seen, and it's not like he got off easy, anyway. See, some men who take a musket ball through the brain are fucked after. Thick, if they can even think at all, or just mental. Salty was sort of like that. See, ever since he got a tenth of his brain blown out, he kept wanking. Constantly. All the time. It wasn't enough for him to just do it, either. He had to do it weird. Sergeants went mad trying to keep him under control. Every week it was something new. Wanking under the table in mess. Wanking on patrol. Wanking while he was spotting for a sniper. I even remember he wanked on parade at one point. surrounded by 5,000 bloody people on all sides, being stared at by Auslamikos' best. He was a nutter. Got so bad after a while that he was scheduled for execution by firing squad, put up against the wall and everything. They weren't really going to do him, of course. He was a mystic, too useful to just kill. Point was, make him think they were, scare him straight. You know what happened when they put him up and took aim? He started wanking. Well, no one really knew what to do about him after a while, so we started getting given rubber balls to load into our muskets and told to shoot him on sight if we caught him doing it anymore. That caught on, as you might expect, suddenly being one of the best sources of entertainment we had. Eventually he learned to start wanking more privately. Not that it was much better, seeing his eyes bulged right before he rushed out of a room. We all knew what it meant. Still, it at least wasn't in front of us. Anyway, this carried on for a while, until Salty ended up finding himself a special bunker to wank in, about 100 yards in front of the walls. That was fine by us, and fine by him, though he still did occasionally get shot, since a good rifleman can nail someone from about twice as far. Eventually, though, the inevitable happened. We got attacked. I don't know what the politics were behind it, really, but apparently the Aves wanted to get a mine that was about to be settled by Tyklos, and they decided the best way to get it was opening a hole in our walls right before an Alpha attack. With Wrath forced to retreat, the Alphas had cut right past to get in the way of the settling Tyke army, and they could swoop in and take the mine for themselves. Not sure why the fuck they couldn't just attack the army if they were so desperate, but I suppose that's politics for you. Point is, we were dealing with a bunch of bastard Aves, and for once, we didn't have the edge in training, because these ones were Clouds of Evanon. Yeah, them, the flyer bitches. They were on us basically all at once, putting bolts through our sentries, then dropping down to slit open the rest in close quarters before flying back up into the air. We shot at them, of course, but they were faster than most of the flying things in Gaul, and actually smart enough to dodge. Eventually, we had to retreat. We just weren't ready for them, which I suppose might have been why they picked us as their target. It didn't make any difference in the end. We were pushed back, and it would have taken us at least an hour to scrounge enough men and resources to take the wall back. By the time we had, the Alphas would have arrived. We'd have been fucked. Except that didn't happen, because way out ahead of the wall, just 100 yards away, the Clouds suddenly started focusing on attacking this tiny little sentry bunker. We didn't know why at all. It seemed random, certainly not strategic, and still they all charged in like mad rats to get a bite of it. All we knew is Salty was there, and clearly he was fighting with everything he had to keep himself in one piece. They fired repeaters in through the windows for a bit, and eventually one of them took the roof off with explosives. Smoke started pouring out in a great stream, fire was burning everywhere, and Salty's magic was visible in it all. Big bolts of light tearing holes in the sky, barely hitting any of the clouds. We kept waiting for them to fall back and attack the rest of us more, but they just didn't. Kept waiting for them to consolidate their forces, but they didn't. Just threw themselves at him like nutters. Well, we weren't complaining. We watched while galvanising ourselves, and kept watching while the Clouds were beaten back once, twice, 5 times or more. Finally, after just a few minutes, we'd retaken the wall, able to get back our positions while the enemy was busy. The Clouds fucked off after we started opening fire on them, and once they were gone, riders were sent out to collect Salty. He was fucked up, as you might expect. The Clouds are light fighters. Anything they can carry needs to be low in magic and weight to be moved around by whatever it is that lets them fly. But they're still elites. Good shots. And they were throwing a lot of metal at him. Fire too. He was burned, looked like half his body had been paper cut, bruised where falling rubble had caught him. But he was alive. After being given a drink and a meal, and told he'd be up for commendation, the inevitable came. We asked him what exactly he did to draw the Cloud attention. Do you know what it was? Salty had been relaxed when the Clouds came, and relaxed when they infiltrated his bunker to do him more quiet like. So relaxed, in fact, that he'd been wanking the very moment they saw him. Haves don't much like men, and the Clouds tend to hate them, especially men who enjoy sex outside of marriage. Wanking? I don't think they even knew were capable of it. Apparently they went nuts, screaming and attacking him even while he called on his magic to defend himself. And here's the kicker, right? Salty didn't stop wanking even while they fought him. He just kept going, which only pissed them off more. So, for about 10 minutes, we've been watching the angriest women in the world trying and failing to kill a chronic masturbator while he came right in front of them. Salty got a medal after that. Can't remember which one, can't say I really care. He also got some fancy mystic healer to take a poke around the inside of his head and fix whatever got blown loose by that gunshot. Didn't really see much of him after that though. He got shipped off somewhere else. Still, even years after, he's talked about it, that section of Wrath. The Wanking Warden, I think they call him.